Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. Hey, flight crew, and welcome back to Soarin' Around WDW. First things first, before we get into today's episode, I have a few quick updates that I want to share with you guys. And number one, we have a new paid Patreon member. Emily and Clayton from Make It Magical podcast have joined our flight crew, and we are so beyond grateful for both of them and all of their support. If you're a longtime listener of this show, you know that we frequently shout out their podcast as we are big fans, and Emily and I have become friends through the podcast world. So thank you so much to them for their continued support. Please go give them a follow and a listen or subscribe to their YouTube. They do both YouTube video content of their podcast and regular podcast, obviously on like Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. So please make sure to go give them a follow because every follow and share and everything really does a lot for this little podcast community. And they truly are some of my favorite people. So thank you so much again to them. It truly does make my day when we see new people pop up on Patreon, whether you're a free member or a paid member. We have some fun content over there. There is a bonus episode already out. I've been doing weekly countdown updates, and I've been uploading some fun throwback home video footage of the parks that I have from the 90s and early 2000s. So come on over and join the fun on Patreon. That link will be in the show notes for today. It's also in the link tree of my Instagram. Next up is an update on our fundraiser. So as of the recording of this episode, we have raised $775 for Give Kids the World, which is amazing. If you donate, you will be entered into our giveaway for a $25 Disney gift card, and the winner will be chosen on a live on Instagram Sunday, March 1st. I don't know exactly what time yet. I might put a poll out to kind of see what you guys think, but most likely it'll be when the kids go to bed, so like in the evening time there. If you join our Patreon as a free member, you will get a bonus entry. And if you join as a paid member, you will get an additional entry per tier level that you join. So be sure to get those donations in. Even if you can only donate $5, it can make such a difference for this organization. And I'm also going to donate any of the money that I make off of Patreon in February onto that page as well. So you have until this Saturday, February 28th at midnight to donate in order to be entered into that giveaway. I also wanted to just say a huge thank you to each and every single one of you who have already donated. Seriously, you guys have blown me away. It has meant so much. My original goal was $500, and obviously we have well surpassed that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful, and I know Give Kids the World will be so grateful as well. So I really, really do appreciate that. The last little housekeeping update is that I officially have posted our first trip vlog onto YouTube. It is a pack and prep with me video for our Disneyland trip, and I plan to post videos and the vlogs like every 2 weeks on Fridays. Hopefully I can keep up with that schedule. So that means the next vlog of my travel day will go up on Friday, March 6th, if all goes as planned. So if you don't already, would love for you to go subscribe on YouTube and go watch the video. If you like that kind of content, show it some love. Definitely would appreciate that. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just head over to the playlist section and you will see the news section with the Disney vlog content there. It will be separated from the EveryRide playlist just so that we can kind of keep things separated and a little bit more organized on the page. Okay, phew. Now that is a lot of stuff going on outside of today's episode, but now that we are through those initial items, let's get to the main event. Today, I am going to do the first half of our trip recap from our most recent trip 2 weeks ago to Disneyland. I started out writing this and then kind of thought, I'm just going to talk through it. It's just me here today, so hopefully this does not seem too discombobulated. I also feel like whenever I'm on an episode by myself, I talk really fast. So I talk really fast all the time, but especially so when it's just me. So I'm going to try to like slow the pace down, talk through it with you guys. And if you didn't get the chance to listen to our pre-trip episode, this trip was a 4-night, 3-park day, parents-only Valentine's weekend getaway to both Disneyland and Disney California Adventure for Maddie and I. I can't believe it's already over. We've been looking forward to this trip for months, but we really did have a wonderful time. And first and foremost, I really should shout out Maddie's parents who came to stay with the girls so that we could even do this trip. Without them, it would not have been possible. So a huge thank you to my in-laws for coming to stay with the girls. They had a great time with y'all. First, let's dive into the first day, which was a travel day. And then I'm also going to talk in today's episode on the second day, which was my EveryRide attempt, which I think is what a lot of y'all are here to hear about. But kind of wanted to start with first things first so you can hear all of the details of the chaos that ensued between the travel day and the EveryRide challenge. But again, for those who might have missed the pre-trip episode, my solo day at the parks was to complete something called the EveryRide challenge. This is where I tried to complete all operating rides in both Disneyland and Disney California Adventure in one singular park day. The initial total when I recorded the pre-trip episode was 51 rides between both parks. However, shortly after that episode dropped, I found out that It's a Small World was going to be open as it had dropped off of the refurbishment calendar. Shout out to friend of the pod, Jana from Backlot Tours podcast. She was on the ground at Disneyland and helped me confirm that It's a Small World really was indeed open. So I knew at that time I would have 52 rides to complete, but also found out that the park hours were extended from 11 p.m. till midnight, which was an hour longer, obviously, than I had originally anticipated. So it actually put me in a really good spot to be able to get the challenge done. But let's not get ahead of ourselves on the challenge. So that is really important context, though, going into this travel day. Starting off with my flight, it luckily left on time. I made my connection in Dallas without a hitch. Everything went smoothly. However, while I was in Dallas, eating, of course, at Chick-fil-A, to no one's surprise, near my gate, I was scrolling Instagram when I noticed that somebody posted that Rise of the Resistance came off the refurbishment calendar for the following day. So what does that mean? That means that then I would have 53 rides to complete in my 16-hour park day. So that put me in a little bit of a panic headspace. Not panic, but I went from like, okay, It's a Small World is open. Now I have 52, but I have an extra hour. It's a Small World is about a 15-minute attraction. So without waiting, load on, load off time, like let's say 20 minutes total minimum it would take to get through that ride. So really I had like an extra 40 minutes, right? Well, Rise of the Resistance is a really long attraction. And usually how Regan and I have done it in Disney World and EveryRide challenges in the past, we go through the single rider line. And so then you usually skip the pre-show and everything. You go right into where the stormtroopers are and get onto the actual attraction, which is a longer attraction in and of itself, which is great. I love the attraction. I'm glad it's long. It makes it worth the wait or worth the purchase of the single pass to me. But for this section at Disneyland, to my knowledge, they do not have a single rider line, which surprises me because as we'll talk about when we're getting into this trip, single rider is a much more popular option and is at a lot more attractions at Disneyland than it is at Disney World, which I really appreciated, especially running this challenge. But as somebody who is going to the park solo for a day, it was nice to have that option to ride single rider. But anyways, getting back to my panic. So found out that Rise of the Resistance was added and I was like, okay, well that attraction is going to take probably half an hour on a good day, even with the Lightning Lane single pass, which I planned to purchase. So that really just gave me now 10 extra minutes on the challenge. And 10 extra minutes is great, right? 5 extra minutes is great. 2 extra minutes is great. Anything helps. Like literally every second matters in this challenge, because if you think about it, if you get off of each attraction, 30 seconds quicker, that's 25 minutes additionally that you have in the ride, which is why walking fast, running between the parks when you're outside of the parks, things like that, getting on the Dumbo elephant that's closest to the exit, getting on the Soarin space that's closest to the exit, all of those things really, really add up and help you accomplish your goal of riding more attractions. So literally every minute counts. So I was like, okay, you know what? 53 is now the total. I was panicking. I recorded a little update video for the vlog and was just like, all right, you can see my head like spinning. this is happening. I just need to like accept it. It will be okay. I love Rise of the Resistance. It's such a fun ride. It's going to be good. So I decided that when I got to the hotel that night, I would check every single attraction to see, what does it say? Is it on the refurbishment calendar? Are there hours? Double check the hours of operation, just because I feel like they were changing things so last minute and I didn't want to be thrown off in the middle of the run if something, if like Grizzly River Run reopened, which I figured that wouldn't, the water was literally drained, or something else closed, not like broke down, but was like closed. So we'll get into that more in a minute. But once I arrived at LAX, I had a scheduled Black Lane car come and get me and bring me to the hotel. And we were staying at the Candlewood Suites in Anaheim. We had a couple of people that we knew who have stayed here and said it's a safe area. It is a little bit of a walk to the parks. I think it's 0.7 or 0.8 miles from the parks. And where we stayed at the Hilton before, it was about a mile walk. So we're like, okay. It also was central ground for Maddie to go to the conference and for me to go to the parks. And then again, the following days for both of us to go to the parks, right? So I appreciated that. I also had heard that the rooms were like pretty decently spaced and they would have like a kitchenette kind of a thing where there was a fridge, different stuff like area to heat up stuff in the microwave and whatnot, leftovers, which I really appreciated. So that was good. And one thing about traveling alone, going back to the car service, regular Ubers are usually fine. But it was almost the exact same price when I had looked ahead because of it being rush hour and LA, it's not exactly close to Anaheim. It's still a good distance away. So I went ahead and just said, you know what? I'm going to spend the $40 extra or whatever it was. I think the regular Uber was 80 to 90 and I paid, I think $130 for the car. And I know some of you guys are like, whoa, that's crazy. But I was traveling alone as a female. Not that things can't happen with that service as well, but it just made me feel a little bit more comfortable. It's not an area that I'm super familiar with. If someone started going the totally opposite direction or something crazy like that, I wouldn't really know. Whereas in Orlando, I'd be like, this is not the way. And Maddie was not like available. He was at conference. And so I just was like, I'm going to just do it, spend the money and ride Black Lane. The drive did take a little over an hour because of that rush hour traffic. I landed at 4:30, then got a little turned around trying to get out of Terminal 1. Somehow I ended up in Terminal B, which is like the international terminal. I don't know what I did there, but got out to the car around 5 o'clock. And traffic was trafficking because it's 5 p.m. rush hour traffic in LA, a city where the traffic is already horrible. But again, my driver was lovely. However, the stop and go traffic made me super nauseous. So I kind of just zoned out, sat in the car, got to the hotel, met Maddie there. He had just gotten out of his conference, had gotten back, kind of got situated, dropped my bags, went to the bathroom, changed my clothes, and went to walk to the Blaze Pizza nearby for dinner. We met up with one of his friends from the conference, and then he went to his award ceremony for his award that he won. And I went back to the hotel to kind of prep my park bag for the next day and take a shower. I went to bed pretty early this night because it was a long day. It felt like almost midnight at this point because of the time difference. So I went to lay down and that was around 9 o'clock or so. The next morning, I got up and Maddie walked over with me to security, and then he kind of peeled off and went to Panera, which is across the street on Harbor from that entrance's security gate. And then he was going over to his conference for the day. So we left the hotel at about 6:10 a.m., but then when we got to security around 6:25, there was already quite a few people there, which really surprised me. It wasn't crowded or anything, but there were a number of families already at that first initial gate. And this is the gate that they open before you get to the actual security check-in. And I started to stress out because a huge name of the EveryRide game is getting to the very front of the pack to rope drop. And I probably should have left about 15 or 20 minutes sooner, I realized afterwards. But luckily, because Rise of the Resistance was just reopening that day, a lot of people were kind of whispering about their plan and like, oh yeah, I heard it came off the refurbishment calendar, and oh, did you hear? And so somebody finally said out loud, you can stop whispering, everybody knows that Rise is reopening. And some people might have not known that, but it was kind of funny. Like everybody thought they had this little secret and they were going to be the only people to rope drop it. And that's hilarious because social media exists and that thing like set off like wildfire as soon as everybody knew that it was reopening. People that are locals intentionally headed to the park for that, right? So anyways, it was kind of funny. But we got let into the initial gate to go to the first checkpoint at 6:34 a.m. Then we got to the actual security gate at 6:56 a.m. So here's where Friday the 13th really started to show her colors. And I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be a day. The person in front of me had 2 carry-on size suitcases. If you have not been to Disneyland, their security is, to put it nicely, lacking. To put it not nicely, it sucks when you are in a hurry. The people there are lovely. The security people are lovely. It's just the process compared to Disney World is so out of date and old school to me. I don't know, like local Disneyland people, tell me how you feel about it. But I just feel like the Disneyland process is so smooth for the most part. And yes, things alarm when they shouldn't. They have to check your bag. But at land, they have to check every single person's bag, every single zipper. And it's for safety. I appreciate it, right? Like I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying they shouldn't have security. I'm just saying they should update to the system that Disney World has because I think it works so much better. So I do love that you only have to go through once and then you're kind of in the quote unquote bubble, so to speak. That makes hopping very easy that way. But that initial check can take a while if people have a lot of stuff and a lot of bags. I did learn that the reason people had carry-on suitcases is they actually have lockers for your suitcases in the Esplanade, which I had no idea that that existed at Disneyland, but I guess it makes sense. Some of them are so big that they can actually fit multiple carry-on suitcases in the one locker, which is wild. However, if you take a suitcase, again, they have to check it all, which means removing almost everything you've nicely packed, including your underwear, in front of everyone if you're not using packing cubes. And even the packing cubes, they have to like unzip, check through it, which takes forever, obviously. So when you're rope dropping and everyone's trying to rush into the park to make it to rope drop, to make it to the front of the gate, to get in first, right? That's everyone's goal. That's why we're there. It was fairly annoying. I wish that they had a lane for people with luggage like this, or like you can go in the lane even if you don't have luggage, but like this is the luggage people lane, because it just, I don't know. I just did not love that, but I know that'd probably be a waste of resources also. Anyway, so that was just happening in front of me. Behind me was a couple, and the guy was saying, just ask, over and over again to this girl. So she finally said to the security guard, if I don't have a bag, can I go through? Because I really have to go to the bathroom. They said yes. So she ran through that metal detector, leaned over the fence on the other side of the metal detector, and puked. Yikes, guys. It was quite a scene. Luggage person finally finished. I got through. I went all the way to the right-hand side of the turnstiles where I waited there. They let us in around 7:27 a.m. to the park, and I found my way to my rope drop of my desired section. Another tip, try to stand either to the far left, which is usually where a lot of the resort guests get to first, or the far right to be closer to whichever section you plan to rope drop. And being closer to a tunnel is quicker access also. I planned to rope drop Fantasyland, so I went straight up the middle by the Walt statue. Although I have heard going to the right is better because many people aren't going to Matterhorn and they use that as a slight advantage to like get through to the castle, not to have to go around the statue, whatever. I was literally at the front of the rope with the best view of the castle. I'm glad I stuck with that decision, got some great pictures. So I was also there at this time and was able to select my first Lightning Lane multi-pass when I beeped in. So I chose Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Now, this was something I thought about the rest of the day. I wondered, is this what made the difference in my run? Truly, I should have probably chosen Roger Rabbit and then changed my speed. I'll kind of tell you all about that here soon. But I was worried that the Mickey and Minnie's line would get way too long by the time that I got over to Toontown. And since it was a really busy day, it was a busy weekend, and I knew it was too early to select Guardians. So let me pause for a second. For those who are not as familiar with Disneyland and the Lightning Lane rules, I want to kind of walk you through the differences real quick, and I'll also give you my tips of what made my use of the Lightning Lane multipass successful and not successful on this trip. At Disneyland, you cannot select your first Lightning Lane multipass until you scan into the parks. You can purchase Lightning Lane multipass for the duration of your trip ahead of time, which is what I did for myself, and you will lock in the cheapest price for that weekend. However, that means you have to buy it for every day that you have a ticket. So if you have a 3-day ticket, you have to purchase it for all 3 days. Or you can instead purchase it when you get into the park, scan in, and the price might be the same as it was to pre-book. That's how it was this summer. We paid ahead and then it ended up being the same day. Or it might be a little higher. Usually it is a little higher. You also can only book one attraction at a time. So you'll scan into the park, purchase if you haven't, and then select your first attraction. If you have a hopper ticket, you can book at the other park that you don't have the initial reservation for, but the return time has to be 11 a.m. or later, which is their hop time there. And you cannot modify that selection to a Disneyland selection unless you want to start your 120-minute timer over. So, yes, the 120-minute timer. This is when you book your first Lightning Lane. Then after 120 minutes or 2 hours, you can book another one. Or if you scan into that first attraction, you can book another one at that time. Meaning this rule allows you to do something called stacking. Now, stacking is where you select something at 10 a.m., let's say, for a later return time. So it's 10 a.m. I'm picking my second Lightning Lane. I want to go on Matterhorn. Matterhorn has a return time of 3 p.m. I can then book another attraction at 12 p.m. even though I haven't scanned into Matterhorn because it's been 2 hours. Let's say I want to go on, I don't know, Haunted Mansion. That one is at 4 p.m. return time. Then you have a stack of rides to use later in the day. So once you get to the afternoon, you'll basically go from Lightning Lane to Lightning Lane if you stack it that way. We did this really well at DCA on our second park day, so I'll get into that in our next episode, as well as what strategy I use for figuring out what should I book next. But my recommendation is to select something right when you go in for rope drop. Pick anything. Typically, these have a very early return time, and if you do it right at 7:30 when you beep in, you can actually book your next one at 9 instead of the usual 2-hour rule. But I say pick one that you know you want to do or you know you might want to do twice, and then about 15 to 20 minutes later, modify it to a little bit of a later time. The reasoning behind this is that from 8 to 9:30ish, most of the time you can really fly through attractions with basically walk-on wait times, depending on what you're rope dropping. So that first Lightning Lane multipass, you really want in a sweet spot of like 9 to 10 or 9:30 to 10:30 as a return time. If you modify 15 to 20 minutes later, it will likely change your ability to book to 9:30, but that's okay. Lots will still be available at that time. Usually I would say if you have 2 days, 1 day at each park or a hopper between both, obviously, booking it ahead of time, the Lightning Lane multipass, like paying for it ahead of time, is worth it. If you have a longer ticket, like let's say you have a 4-day ticket, you probably are not going to need Lightning Lane every day, if at all, especially if you rope drop. Confused yet? I mean, there's a lot. That's a lot of information. I will tell you more on all of this later and why we think you might need it, you might not need it, how to kind of pick and choose whether or not to get it. But I did want to share with you guys that I do have an entire Lightning Lane multipass guide in my Patreon for all of my members, free and paid, that I created based on my own experiences and have sections for both Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort because their two systems, even though they are called the same thing, are very different. And that will really help you maximize your hard-earned money that you have spent getting these Lightning Lanes. And again, if you've been a listener of the show for a long time, you know that we are big proponents of utilizing Lightning Lane when it makes sense for the situation. Oftentimes with the kids, it almost always makes sense for us to, except for Animal Kingdom, but I digress. I could do like probably an entire episode on Lightning Lane strategy and different things like that. But back to the story. So I selected Mickey and Minnie's as my first Lightning Lane, was standing at the rope waiting for it to drop to go to Fantasyland, and the family next to me was a little obnoxious, making jokes to the security guard about, let's run for it, distract the security guard, butter him up, let's pay him. It got really old really fast. We were literally only standing there together for 30 minutes, and I was like, okay, you guys need to stop. You're being annoying. And the poor security guard was just like, oh yeah, like brushing it off and tried to change the subject. And I felt bad for him. But when the rope finally did drop right at 8 a.m., I hustled without running and was about the 6th person or boat to leave on Peter Pan. So the challenge had just begun. Once I got off of Peter Pan, I made my way to Alice and then to the Mad Tea Party. Dumbo was next and was listed at 20 minutes with a decently deep standby line, but I figured it would not likely get any better, so I went ahead and got in the line. The big thing about Fantasyland is there's not Lightning Lane for like any of those attractions, with the exception of Matterhorn being nearby. But like Peter Pan does not have one, unlike Disney World. None of those other little dark rides have one. Dumbo does not have one, unlike Disney World. So really the lines are probably not going to be any better until late at night, and then they'll get better again. But I decided I'm just going to wait. Spoiler alert, the time did not get better. And unfortunately for me, it was actually more like 30 minutes instead of the posted 20. So the time I gained by flying onto Peter Pan and Alice was already lost on the 3rd ride of the day. I hopped off and got right onto the next set of rides, Mr. Toad, Snow White, Pinocchio, and then the carousel, where something really magical happened. As we loaded on, the Disneyland band boarded, and instead of the usual carousel music, the band played Let's Go Fly a Kite, written by the Sherman Brothers for Mary Poppins. It was truly so magical, and I don't know who else is a big fan of Saving Mr. Banks, but I love that movie, and that song always makes me think of that movie. So, so good. And being in the OG park, hearing it where the Sherman Brothers were responsible for so much of the park's music. Anyway, I had no time for tears, but I was like tearing up because before I knew it, I was hopping off, and hopping on was Mary Poppins and Bert. I swear the most magical character interactions like this only happen at Disneyland. Once I got off, I had to decide, do I head over to Mickey and Minnie's as planned? Or since I just made up 5 minutes in doing these rides super quick, do I go for another ride? So I just kind of debated for a second, and then I figured, okay, I'm just going to go get Casey Jr. done. Got in that line, stood there. It said 5 minutes. I waited about 5 minutes. I'm like, I've barely moved. I don't think this is going to be 5 minutes. So I bailed. I was like, all right, I'm just going to go do Mickey and Minnie's, and was kicking myself for standing there and wasting that time. Because again, every single minute counts. 5 minutes is another ride, a dark ride, right? Like a quick dark ride, like Winnie the Pooh. You could be done in 5 minutes. So I was not happy with myself, but made it over to Toontown, jogged over there, quick walked, wink, 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 and made it to Mickey and Minnie's. It was basically a walk-on, but I did have that initial Lightning Lane multi-pass. And at that time, when I was waiting, I think for Dumbo or one of these other rides, maybe not that early, maybe it was Carousel, I had already gone on and selected Guardians as my second Lightning Lane with a return time for post rope drop over at the other park. And that's when I started to think, was this a mistake? Should I not have selected Guardians so early? But I was so stressed about getting the Guardians Lightning Lane because that's the ride between both parks that seems to go so fast. Indiana Jones does too, but Indiana Jones has a single rider line. I really don't know why Guardians doesn't have a single rider line when so many attractions at these parks do, because there were many times that we rode this attraction during our time at the parks this past, weekend when we were there, and they were calling for like parties of one. So I don't know why they don't have a single rider line. But anyways, maybe because it would jack up the wait time more than it already is, and it's already usually a long wait time. So it doesn't matter. That's what I chose as my next Lightning Lane. And the problem with that was then when I scanned into Mickey and Minnie's, in my head, I thought, oh, once I scan in, I'll be able to select Roger Rabbit. Well, no, because the 120-minute rule started as soon as I selected Guardians. And I could not modify Guardians to anything over in Disneyland without resetting my timer for 120 minutes. So I was kind of stuck. And I, again, started to panic because I'm like, oh no, what did I just do? Roger Rabbit said 30-minute wait, I think. And so I was like, okay, this could be bad. So I get in line And looking back, it says Roger Rabbit was 20-minute wait. I'm going through my picture feed here. So Roger Rabbit said 20-minute wait. And I was like, crap, I'm already going to be behind all this time that, again, like I'll make up a little bit of time and I'll lose time. But I got in line because this ride is one that breaks down very often. So I was like, I just need to get it done. I flew through the queue. I got in line at 9:54. I was on the ride at 10:05. So this seemed to be the theme of the day for the rest of the day, pretty much, was inflated wait times. I think Dumbo was the only thing that was more than what the wait time said. Most things were significantly less. So yes, this was a 10-minute wait instead of the posted 20. So got off of Roger Rabbit, of course, wanted to finish Toontown, so I didn't have to go back over there. So I went over to the Chip and Dale's gadget coaster, and that was another 10-minute wait. That's a very, very short attraction, literally like 1 minute long. So I had made up time. I was doing really well. And so I'm like, okay, I'm all the way over here. I'm going to just do It's a Small World. It's a walk on. I think the standby wait said that it was going to be like 10 or 15 minutes or something like that, but I had 15 minutes to spare. So, and it would save me from having to do it later that night. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'll do Small World now. I was supposed to do Casey Jr. Train after that, and I was like, I'm gonna wait because that seemed really long for whatever reason until nighttime when like nobody is in Fantasyland, and initially had planned to do Small World at nighttime. So I just kind of flip-flopped those attractions, and Small World is a longer ride. It takes, again, about 15 minutes to get through. So I think that was a smart decision. Made it onto that ride very quickly. It looks like I made it on literally in 5 minutes. Was on a boat, so a walk on. You really can't get better than that. Then I did the Storybook canal boats, and this was one that I actually have never done before. It was a first time attraction for me. We didn't get to do it this summer, and I think I was like, yeah, it's fine. I thought similarly of like Casey Jr. Train, like I don't really care about that. But Storybook canal boats is actually really cute. I'm really glad that I did it. If you've always skipped it at Disneyland, go try it. The miniatures of the different little villages were adorable. I'm glad I got to do it. Obviously, I figured I would get to do it because I was doing every single ride, right? But yeah, it was one that I think my kids would have loved if we took them on it last summer. So that's just something to know, something to note. They do also start to put out more boats around like 10:30 or 11, between 10 and 11 when it's a busy day. So initially they only start out with 3 boats on that attraction, and then as it gets busier they get up to 6. So by the time I got there it was up to 6, and the wait had said I think like 20 minutes, but I was on it a little bit less than that. So that was good. After these Storybook canal boats, I was like, all right, I need to go find a Main Street vehicle, because once the band starts to play on Main Street, they shut down the vehicles, and there were show times for the band at like 11:30 and at 12. So, or 12:15, something like that, 11:25, 12:15. So I knew I needed to get that done. Main Street vehicles at Disney World has always been the biggest challenge for people running there. So if any of my EveryRide friends are listening to this from Disney World who have not done Disneyland, it is so much easier at Disneyland. They are everywhere all the time during the hours listed, except for when the band plays. So it was 11 o'clock. I spotted one. I spotted the omnibus from when I was coming out of the canal boats, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I have it on the vlog, me saying, oh, I see one. Start quick walking over there, and got on it. I was so happy because that not only was literally a walk on, I had allotted myself 30 minutes to get on and ride it, and it took way less than that. So that was awesome. It literally took me 10 minutes. So I saved 20 minutes right there. So kind of back on top, was super happy. Went to Astro Orbiter, and at that time it was time to select another lightning lane. For whatever reason, this is another thing that's kind of opposite of Disney World. Disneyland Star Tours has a crazy wait time most of the day. Almost all day, it was 32 minutes minimum. Most of the time, it was almost an hour or more wait, which blows my mind. Like, Star Tours is cool. I think the coolest part about it at Hollywood Studios, if I'm being honest, is the queue and just like the atmosphere when you're outside. Like, it's a really cool space. But at Disneyland, it's just like thrown into poor Tomorrowland, which is a whole situation in itself over there. We'll get into that in a future episode. But yeah, so it just like, it didn't really make sense to me that it was so long. So I was like, okay, I've got to pick that as a lightning lane. I don't have 55 minutes to be standing in a Star Tours line. And again, for those of y'all who know me, I do not like this attraction because I get motion sick. It's a really cool attraction. It's re-rideable. I love that. Love that they have C-3PO and, you know, all these different characters in it from the classic Star Wars, but I get super sick during it. So I literally have to close my eyes the whole time. So I was like, I don't want to wait 55 minutes for something that I don't even like. So I lightning laned it and got a pass to return later that day, which really worked out in my favor because it was not super far out. I think it was like a 12 o'clock return time. I got it at 11 o'clock. So that was good. So after Astro Orbiter, decided to head over and try to get the boats done. This is where I started to feel a little more confident because when I had looked the night before at the attractions list, I literally went through and clicked on every single attraction to make sure Columbia Sailing Ship, for whatever reason, had temporarily closed on it for that day, for the Friday. It was open the Saturday, seemed to be open, I think, on the Thursday. I don't remember now, but it was not open on Friday, and it was not under the refurbishment list. It just said temporarily closed from the day before until like all throughout the day. And I kept checking because if it would have opened and I missed it, it wouldn't have counted as a finish, right? So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do the canoes because I've never done that before. It was another new attraction for me. And then get off the canoes and go to Riverboat. Well, when we were on the canoes, I kind of saw where the Riverboat was. And I was like, I have time to sneak in Pooh. I'm all the way over here back in Bayou country. Let me just jump on Pooh. So I jumped on Winnie the Pooh, then came back around, quick walk jogged over to Riverboat and made it just as they were boarding, which was great. At this point, it is now 12:30. So I have still 12 hours left in my run, but I was already chugging through the attractions. So if you haven't kept track, because obviously, how would you have kept track? Because that's a lot to keep track of. This was attraction number 18 of 52. So I was really doing really good. And at this point, again, we're at 52 because of Columbia Sailing Ship being listed as being closed. So I was like, okay, I'm doing great. I still hadn't eaten anything, still hadn't gone to the bathroom, but I think that adrenaline just kicked in. So I was feeling okay. And, oh, actually, that's not true. I ate a Starbucks pumpkin loaf that I had got at the airport the night before in line for Astro Orbiter. So that's not true. I did eat something, but then on the riverboat, I sat down, ate a mini Chomps, not sponsored, but love Chomps. They're like one of my favorite snack things that my friend Gretchen introduced me to, and a granola bar, drank some water, just sat and chilled and enjoyed the riverboat as we no longer have that at Disney World. When I got off of it, I skipped back over to my Star Tours Lightning Lane, buzzed in, and got an immediate return for the Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters to do while I was over there in Tomorrowland. My Guardians of the Galaxy mission breakout time was 6:10, so I was kind of keeping an eye on things over there to see what other lightning lanes I might be able to stack around that time, but everything in Tomorrowland was still a little busy, so I selected Buzz as the next one after Star Tours. So did Star Tours, got off, went to Space Mountain, did the single rider line, which that wait was listed at 70 minutes. Single rider only took about 20, maybe 25 minutes. And then went over to do Buzz with my Lightning Lane. At that point, I saw that Toy Story Mania was starting to get later and later into the day. So I went ahead and chose that as a 5:20 return time. So it's kind of stacking up those Lightning Lanes for DCA later. Got off of the Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, went over and did Autopia, which I had never done at Disneyland. I still don't get it and wish they would remove it. I know it's an original and a classic in the cars, but I don't know. That one is not my favorite. Tomorrowland needs some work, you guys. Tomorrowland needs some work at Disneyland. Sorry, Disneylanders. It does. And then I hopped on the monorail. I had thought about trying to get onto Nemo Subs because it was listed at like 15 minutes, but then it jumped up and I was like, nope, I am ahead of schedule and that would have saved me from having to come back over to Tomorrowland later. However, DCA's wait times were going up and up and up. And I was like, I just need to feel better. I need to get over there, get on this monorail, run over to DCA, and start getting stuff done there. So, especially since I only had those 2 lightning lanes so far for that park, so I really needed to get going. Got on the monorail, sprinted over to DCA, literally through the crowds in downtown Disney, running my butt off because I was outside the park, so you can technically run. And that was the only time of the day that somebody told me, slow down. And it was not a cast member. There was not even that many people where I was running when this dude said this to me. It was just like a parent pushing a stroller. And he's like, lady, slow down. And I just turned around and was like, sorry. And he was like, you better be, and was so grumpy. And I was just like, okay, sir, sorry to bother you. Literally nowhere near you or your stroller, but that's fine. That was the only time I got yelled at for running this time. So that was pretty good. And again, I really tried to not actually run in the parks. I jogged sometimes, or like a quick walk jog. But anyway, so got in, and because of my lightning lane being so much later for Guardians, I decided I was going to start doing the park in reverse order of what I had initially thought. The problem with this is I wanted to mobile order at Pim's Text Kitchen because one of my favorite items there is the soft pretzel with the beer cheese, the giant one. And I wanted to eat that and get a Coke to give me some energy. And that was over by Guardians. But I was like, I'm not going to go over there and mobile order food now. So I'm just going to go start on the other side of the park. I went right to Soarin, did single rider. Again, this saved my butt. That line was so long, and got in very quickly. I got on in the line at 2:08, was getting onto the attraction at 2:20. So literally a 10-minute wait. It was awesome. And got off the attraction, hustled over to Little Mermaid. Then around there, just went all around those little fair rides. I had never ridden any of them before. I get that it's like a fair theme, a boardwalk theme, a pier theme, whatever. They could knock all these rides out and do something else. I love the atmosphere of the lake, but like, I don't get it. Like, why are those attractions there anymore? They could do something cooler, do another like mini coaster, a kid's coaster, like on the boardwalk. I don't know. I don't get it. I really wish they would do something else with this entire space kind of on that right-hand side, but I knocked out all of those fair rides. At that time, it popped for me to get another lightning lane. I chose Goofy's Sky School because that wait was pretty long. And that one is similar, if you've never been to Disneyland, as the old like Chester and Hester's Dinorama at Animal Kingdom. Pretty much the same ride, or like a mouse trap chase kind of ride that you see at other parks like Busch Gardens or whatnot, fairs, things like that. So I did all of those rides except for Goofy Sky School because I had to come back with a lightning lane for that. And then went ahead and got onto the Emotional Whirlwind, and that one was posted 20. That's when you know it's busy in this park. That ride was posted 20, and it was actually a 20-minute wait. Then got on Pixar Pal Around with this sweet couple who, it was literally just them and me in the non-swinging. I did not want to hurt myself doing swinging, but the non-swinging gondola. And the view, I had never been on that either because when we went, I don't remember if y'all remember back when we did our post-trip recap, that's the ride that we were waiting for. And Blake busted her face open on the concrete right in the line for that ride. So we had to hop out of line. We never did it. It was really cool to do it. I would definitely never in my life do swinging. You could not pay me to do swinging. I would get sick for sure. So yeah, did Pixar Pal Around, got off and headed over to the Goofy Sky School lightning lane because while I was on Pixar Pal Around, I went ahead and was swiping and got an earlier time, as Mammoth Club calls it, fiddle faddling or whatever they say. But basically swiping up, modifying, swiping up, and then usually some newer times will pop. So did that. They popped. That was great. Did Jessie Critter Carousel. Then went ahead and booked a lightning lane for Haunted Mansion when I badged into Toy Story Mania. Got a Haunted Mansion lightning lane And that was a return time of 9 p.m., which was lining up perfectly. All of this had worked out really well in my favor up to this point. So at this point, again, I'm sure you're not keeping track of numbers here, but I was at number 33 for Toy Story Mania. So I was well over halfway, and it was 5:30. So I knew that I had about 6.5 hours left. I was doing really, really well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go stand in single rider line for Incredicoaster. I look at the app and I'm like, oh my God, Incredicoaster has a 130-minute wait. I go to the single rider line and I posted a picture on Instagram for those of y'all who follow, but it was way up the bridge, all the way by where you would get those Monsters Inc. Slushy kind of things, and literally all the way up to those umbrellas. I stood in that line for about 5 minutes before deciding there ain't no way. If I stand here, I am never going to make it onto other attractions. So I'm going to miss my lightning lane for the Guardians ride. And I thought, like, okay, even if it's half of 100, right? Like, even if it's an hour, I don't have an hour to spare. I maybe was an hour ahead, but I can't stand in this line for an hour and miss my Guardians lightning lane. So I was like, all right, I'm going to come back and see if it goes down. So I bought my single pass for Radiator Springs Racers at that time for a 6:20 return time. And this was at 5:56. So that seems to be how the single passes work there. They're usually available like very close to the time you want to ride it. So you cannot pre-select your time for the single pass. You have to just take whatever they give you. Like at Disney World, I believe you can say like, I want to be in this time range, and if it's available, or like you can pick kind of what's available. But here you just have to pick whatever time they give you, and that is usually around the time that it is. Keep track of it if you're really desperate to do the ride, because they can sell out, but it's not super common because they're expensive. I went over and did the Mater's attraction, ran over to Guardians, and that's when the next bad occurrence happened, and that is that web slingers went down. At this point, I called Regan. I was like, dude, give me some encouragement. Talk me into continuing this, because I wanted to finish until midnight. I knew at this point, between Incredicoaster being so long and web slingers being down, it was almost impossible for me to complete the entire challenge. And so, he was like, just do your best, do what you can do. And I was like, okay, you know what? I really just want to go for 50. And that would mean completing all of the Disneyland attractions and skipping out on the last two, the web slingers and Incredicoaster at DCA, once I finished everything else. So I did Guardians with the lightning lane, Monsters Inc. with the single pass, like the buddy pass, then got on Radiator Springs Racers. In between then, back up a minute, I went on Guardians, Monsters Inc., and grabbed, after Monsters Inc., my pretzel that I had mobile ordered. They don't have to-go cups for the cheese, so I literally dumped the cheese into a Ziploc bag that I had brought. It was clean for the challenge in like ketchup cups. Like I put them in ketchup cups, put it in a Ziploc bag, took the pretzel. It was like a gallon size bag. Took the pretzel, ripped it into pieces, shoved half of it in there, and was running through the park with a giant half a pretzel in, like, running around holding it in my hand, eating pieces off of it as I'm literally speed walking through the park. I looked ridiculous, but went on Radiator Springs Racers. And when I got off, got onto Luigi's, and Web Slingers was still closed. And I just said, okay, I'm not going to waste my time at Incredicoaster, and there's no lightning lane available. There's no option for web slingers. I'm just gonna hop. And I was really sad. I kind of took a minute and was like, I know that this is over at this point. It was so crowded at this point at DCA. All of the wait times were so high, and I was just like, even if web slingers reopens and I hop on that, I still would have to wait close to an hour, maybe even half an hour, for Incredicoaster, and I just don't have the time to do that at this point. Everything had taken a little bit longer than I wanted it to on Pixar Pier. all of those little fair rides that should have been a walk-on were 10-minute wait each. Pal Around was longer than I wanted it to be. I waited like half an hour for that. Emotional Whirlwind was a true 20-minute wait. So I was kind of behind the eight ball there. And I was just like, I just don't think that this is going to happen. So I decided to just go ahead and hop over back to Disneyland. So when I went back to Disneyland, I still had a number of attractions to complete. I was at ride 38, so I still had 14 rides to complete, and I got over there at 8:07. So I had to get 14 rides done in 4 hours. But I was like, okay, I am motivated. If I get all 14 rides done, that would mean, 12 rides. If I get all 12 rides done at Disneyland, that would mean that I have completed 50 attractions today. And that's pretty crazy. Like, I know in the challenge world, it's like, okay, well, you didn't finish, but like, that's still pretty crazy. So I was like, I'm going to go for it. Got on the train, sprinted/ran quietly to Galaxy's Edge, got to Millennium Falcon, and did single rider. Another tip for Millennium Falcon, if you haven't listened to or watched our vlogs of our other EveryRide challenges, when you're in the single rider queue, you come to a T where you can go right or left. I don't even think people know you can go left, or like a lot of people don't. Go left. You almost always never wait once you get up to the top of those stairs. So that's what I did. Went left, went to the top of the stairs, got on Rise of the Resistance, and then had already pulled an immediate like Tiana's Bayou lightning lane. However, there was no wait because it was freaking freezing at this point. So I got off of Rise, ran to Tiana's, threw on my flip-flops, took my shoes off, put them in a plastic bag, like a Target bag, put on my flip-flops, put on my poncho, took off my jacket so that it wouldn't be wet, and my hat, and went on Tiana's. I was the only person in my boat. My ride photo is hilarious. It was awesome, honestly. Like, I felt insane. I was like, this is crazy. It's like 50 degrees. It's cold. It's windy. Nobody wants to be doing this. But there was also this really cute old couple in the Tiana's line that just kept like going around. Like, they're just like, one more time. And they just let them keep going. And they were like enjoying it, having the time of their lives. It was adorable. So they were like, we have ponchos. Who cares? We're just going to keep riding this. We love this ride. So it was really cute. But got off that ride, took my wet poncho off and threw it away because I was like, I'm not going to try to figure this out. We've got more ponchos if we want to go on it again tomorrow. And went to Haunted Mansion. At that point, I called Regan again and I was like, okay, I have made it to Haunted Mansion. At this point, I have 7 attractions left. It is already 9:16. Can I really do 7 attractions in less than 3 hours? And he was like, just try. Like, obviously I wasn't going to give up, but just needed that little motivation from him. I did, in Haunted Mansion, pull an immediate return time for Big Thunder, or not immediate, but for later that night for Big Thunder. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Then I pull up the app as I'm walking into Pirates of the Caribbean, and Indiana Jones broke down. And I was just like, oh my gosh, can my luck get like any worse? But I was like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to keep pushing. Went to Indiana Jones, or went to Pirates, went over to Jungle Cruise, got that done. Did the Nemo submarine, so clear across to Tomorrowland. Got in the single rider line for Matterhorn. Went over, did Casey Jr. train. And there I had a little bit of a hiccup because somebody puked on the train like a kid. And they had to clean it up. And so that took a minute to do that. So that took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to. Got on a Big Thunder. And when I got off of Big Thunder Railroad, so my ride photo for the challenge for Big Thunder was at 11:50. So when I got off, it was 11:54. Guys, I was like, most people be like, all right, it's done. The park's closing in 6 minutes. I was like, no, I'm going to Indiana Jones. I look at the app, it's reopened. I said, it's go time. I took off and got to Indiana Jones and said, are y'all still open? They said yes, got in the line and was like, okay, but I can't claim victory yet because it could break down. It literally just broke down, but I was like, all right, it's fine. At this point, I checked my steps right as it hit midnight, and I had walked 22,489 steps. I had burned 4,184 calories at this point. So far in this day, I had eaten a piece of pumpkin loaf, 2 Chomps minis, a granola bar, and half of a Pim's pretzel with some Coke. It was crazy. And I did use the bathroom over in Galaxy's Edge. I did, finally. I took care of myself. I was good, you guys. So I was like, oh my gosh, my feet hurt. I'm in this line. I get on Indiana Jones and I was like, I cannot believe this. I just hit 50 rides in one day at Disneyland. It was crazy. Walked out of the park at 12:27. The popcorn cart had said it was going to be open till 12:30, but they were like, no, we're not letting anybody else in line. And I was like, no, okay. I was like, I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day. But I was like, all right, it's fine. Ate another granola bar on my walk back to the hotel. But yeah, I just felt this sense of like victory amidst the like total disappointment of not being able to finish. And I know if you're not a person who does EveryRide challenges, you're probably like 50 is insane. That's so awesome. I really appreciate everybody who said that, who has supported me, who has, really hyped me up for like even doing that, including my brother. But it is like one of those things that you're like, gosh darn it. But like, what could I have done differently? And really the only thing is I think I could have utilized the fast pass system better. I don't know it as well as Disney World. And in the next episode of our recap, I'll get a little bit more into like strategy and things that I think could have helped and how to use it better. I also didn't have my brother with me, who is like 100% my support person. Like when you start to feel like, this sucks, if you're with somebody else that like hypes you up, it makes it way better. Like I don't know that I could run Disney World by myself. It's just too much literal running, because outside of the parks, like you leave those gates, you take off to the parking lot, and it's a lot of running to the hot parking lot and back, or if it's raining, to the wet parking lot, to the cold parking lot, like whatever. A lot of running. And mentally, I think I would have just been like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do this. But at Disneyland, I was like, okay, I'm already in. I don't have to go through security multiple times. I don't have to do all that. Like logistically felt more at reach. But really the only other thing that I could think of is like the wait times, the crowds. Like it was a holiday weekend, and that showed up at DCA. Disneyland really was not terrible. It was busy, but it was not as bad as the next day, which we'll get into, Valentine's Day. But the DCA crowds were popping, and everything, was working. Not much went down throughout the day, except for me, the only things that I saw that were like on my path was Web Slingers and Indiana Jones, which is a feat in itself. If you know anything about Disneyland, I swear that stuff goes down. So many rides go down in a day, and we've just been really unlucky, but it happened again the next day too. So anyway, that was the end of my challenge. Walked back to the hotel, which also was probably a poor decision. I probably should have Ubered or taken the Toy Story bus. Is like fairly close to where we were staying at the Candlewood, but I didn't. And I'm not going to lie, when I got like, 0.2 miles from the hotel, I was like, this was probably not smart. It's not the best city to be walking around in at night. It's not unsafe, and I didn't see anybody. Like it was nothing crazy. It was just like, this wasn't a great decision. I'm out here all alone and my husband is dead asleep in the hotel. Like I don't know, I started to panic a little bit. But at that time, again, 1 a.m. in California, so for my brother it was like 4 a.m. I'm like, I cannot call him. So I just walked and made it safely. It was all fine. But yeah, didn't love that. Probably wasn't the smartest idea, and my feet were killing me. I got in that bed, changed my clothes, got in bed, brushed my teeth, blah, 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 and laid down. And I was like, I am hurting. I am hurting so bad. My feet were hurting. Everything was throbbing. But I did feel a sense of like pride that I did it. I stuck it out. I still hopped back to Disneyland even when I knew it was over, and raised money for a great cause. And like I said earlier in this episode, we're over $700 raised for Give Kids the World. It really is the reason behind all of this. I love the strategy. I love the rides. I love the community of the EveryRide group. that's my favorite thing about these days is like logging onto Twitter and all these people that you might have met once or you've never met at all before are all just like hyping you up, and they're like, you've got this, here's a reminder for when this gets hard. It's almost like running a marathon when people like send you little notes to listen to throughout. Going onto Twitter to like post my next tweet and seeing like all these messages from people that run the challenge, who have done the challenge, who have completed it, who know how it feels. It was great. And all of you guys on Instagram through DMs, through text, like saying, you know, you've got this, you're doing awesome, how's it going, checking on you. Like, it was awesome. So I really, really do appreciate everybody's support. I think it's such a fun thing. And a lot of people really hadn't heard of people doing this before. A lot of people are like, you're insane. Why is that fun? It's not for everyone. And I'm going to tell you, when you're in it towards the end, you're like, this is not necessarily fun. But I did feel better, like motion sickness wise. I didn't have to take any meds this time and felt good. And even though I didn't eat a lot, I still like felt well. And then don't worry, I made up for it the next 2 days at the parks. But yeah, it was a really good run overall. So again, very proud of myself, happy that I got it done, and looking forward to getting to do another attempt with Regan over at Disney World, hopefully this fall. That's the plan. So that is it for today. I'm going to wrap up here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the insider peek into kind of how this challenge works, what my strategy was, how I ran through the day. I did film a lot while I was running this, and so I'm going to try to get that vlog up at some point. The first vlog that will go next after the one that's posted is after the one that's there, like the pack and prep, is my travel day vlog. So the EveryRide one will come eventually. That one obviously takes a little longer to edit than most because there's a lot of pieces that I got to throw in there. But if you're interested in seeing us run the EveryRide challenge at Disney World, 2 of those videos are already up on YouTube. So if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and do that. I hope that you guys have a great week. Looking forward to getting into the second half of this recap with Maddie next week. And we will talk to you guys next time. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into weekly polls and debates. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow and hit that 5-star button. If you are over on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a comment as well. If you're listening on Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review would mean the world. You can also now support the show through our Patreon at patreon.com/SoarinAroundWDW podcast by becoming a free or paid member and finding exclusive content and bonus episodes and videos there too. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next flight.